5 years and 8 months. That's how long a judge has jailed whistleblower David McBride for sharing classified documents that formed the basis of the ABC's Afghan Files reporting. 5 years and 8 months in jail, with a non-parole period of just over 2 years for sharing documents with investigative journalists. 5 years and 8 months in jail for the whistleblower while the journalist gets an Order of Australia. What does it say about our government that they're willing to stand by and allow this all to happen? And make absolutely no mistake, this is what the current Labor government and the former coalition government wanted. I mean, how can we say that with so much certainty? Because both Labor and the coalition had the opportunity to step in and act at any time.
It's true, the Attorney-General has power under the Judiciary Act to discontinue proceedings.
They both made the conscious decision not to.
We don't need a culture of secrecy, we need a culture of disclosure. Protect whistleblowers, expand their protections and the public interest test.
Look, I'm old enough to remember a young opposition elbow when he was praising the courage of whistleblowers like David McBride. We owe it to the brave whistleblowers who stood up, do we, Elbow? It's a real shame Anthony Albanese and Mark Dreyfus couldn't find the courage to stand up when they were needed. What message does this send potential whistleblowers? I mean, I guess that's really rhetorical because clearly the message from the government to whistleblowers is don't do it.
The message that's gone out clearly today is a complete chilling hand to anybody in Australia who works for the government, works for the military, works for the police, who has something to reveal. There's been a sort of surge of enthusiasm towards whistleblowing protection. That's been sliced to pieces by David McBride, even if he walked out today on a control order of some sort.
In handing down the sentence, Justice Mossop said it's important to deter others from such conduct. What are we supposed to make of that? Independent MP Andrew Wilkie summarised it well, I thought.
The first Australian to front a court and the first Australian to go to jail over the alleged war crimes in Afghanistan is the whistleblower that brought the allegations to the public's attention. And I'll tell you why the government's behaved this way. Because governments, be they LNP or Labor, they hate whistleblowers. They hate people speaking up. They hate people shining a light on official misconduct. And they consistently want to punish the whistleblower, and they consistently want to send a signal to would-be whistleblowers to shut up, to not break ranks, to not cause problems for governments. That's how I explain today. That's how I explain the fact that David McBride, the Afghanistan whistleblower, will be imprisoned for at least 2 years, because that's what the government wanted. The government wanted to punish David McBride for causing trouble. The government wanted to punish David McBride and to send a signal to other insiders to stay on the inside and to stay silent.
David McBride's lawyer spoke outside the court after sentencing, indicating an appeal was on the cards.
The basis of that appeal is not so much today. It was the decision that His Honour made some months ago when we changed our plea to guilty on the meaning of duty. His Honour ruled the duty of an Australian military officer effectively has one meaning, and that is to obey orders. Well, we fundamentally disagree with that, and we think it's an issue of national importance, indeed international importance, that a Western nation has such a narrow definition of duty. We say David McBride fulfilled his duty, and he wished to put to a jury that he properly conducted himself according to the oath that he made to his nation. We will be taking that as an appeal point, and that's the only prospect of hope we can give to David today.
Following the sentencing, Mark Dreyfus did his very best to avoid taking any personal responsibility by throwing the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions under the bus.
A spokesman for Mr Dreyfus says it was the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions' decision to prosecute McBride, made independently of the government.
Anyone that has remotely followed this story will see right through what Mark Dreyfus is doing here. The federal government and Mark Dreyfus have had the power to intervene at any time to stop this prosecution. They've just chosen not to.
Rex Patrick says the federal government and Attorney-General Mark Dreyfus had many chances to intervene.
He is given a power by the Parliament specifically for these sorts of circumstances where the judges are focusing in on technicalities of law. He should have stood back and dropped this prosecution. It's not in the public interest. It's a hugely chilling outcome for anyone who's thinking about blowing the whistle.
You can now read the entire judgment on the ACT Supreme Court website. It's worth remembering though, when you are reading it, just how hamstrung David McBride's defence had been as a result of the government ensuring that evidence could not be presented at trial on national security grounds. It's pretty hard to mount a defence with both hands tied behind your back. Once again, it seems like members of the crossbench are really the only ones operating with a conscience, with a gang of crossbenchers calling for the Labor government to immediately pardon David McBride, which the government have the power to do if they want to. Discontinue the prosecution of Tax Office whistleblower Richard Boyle, which again the government have the power to do if they want to, as well as committing to actually fixing the broken whistleblowing laws in Australia so that the country doesn't end up here again. Based on some of the comments from the last video, there were a few people asking why McBride did what he did.
And he became aware of serious systemic issues with our defence forces, issues that he raised in terms of unlawful killing of civilians, unarmed adults, unarmed children, where he took that to his superiors. It went up the chain of command, including to the delegate of the Chief of the Defence Force, Major General Hurley, now the Governor-General. He then went to the Australian Federal Police and made a formal complaint. That was ignored. After that, he went to senior politicians, very senior politicians, and raised these issues, saying there is something seriously wrong here, you must investigate this. He eventually got a response by the Australian Federal Police 3.5 years later when they raided his home and they charged him for leaking information to the media. He admits that he gave information to the media because he exhausted all remedies available to him.
And here's David McBride on the project.
The problem was with the commanders. This is the key to my complaint, to say we became so enamoured with the media idea. If someone was good looking and a good talker, even if there was evidence to say that they had murdered someone, we were like talking them up, and then we realised we might have backed the wrong people. And then we started saying, shit, we need to get some non-entities, make scapegoats of them. We can't be putting non-entities in jail just to protect famous people.
Why did you blow the whistle?
Well, no one else was going to do it. It was going to get worse. I don't believe the country's probably defended, because I think instead of defending Australia, the Australian Defence Force defends the minister, and I think that's a problem.
And you still think that's the case?
I still think that's the case, more than ever, and that's why I'm prepared to go to jail on it.
So to close out this short video that I was really hoping I wasn't going to have to make, Tuesday was a sad day for Australian democracy, for whistleblowers and integrity in general. But it would also have been a very sad day for David McBride and his family, and thoughts have to go out to them. He's hoping the federal government can muster up the courage to step in and do the right thing, preferably sooner rather than later.